Welcome to SEC Prime Time. I'm your host, Max Starks. I'm joined, of course, by the famous one, Clint Sterner, and of course, presented by our partners at Bet River Sportsbook. We have a great show for you. We're going to give you the recaps, the good, the bad, the extremely ugly, but that's what it is in the SEC. That's what week one is all about. It's about turning slop into fine cuisine. That's what we're going to try and do for some of these programs. The other ones, I'm sorry, you're in the trough, but I can't complain. But Clint, let's just dive right in. Week one initial reaction of what you thought of the SEC.
Well, I mean, you got to start with the two big wins versus the ACC, right? Bama beats up on Miami and Georgia. I mean, they win a nail biter versus Clemson. So I think it starts with those two right there. Very, very impressive W's from both organizations, both programs. I had a lot of questions about Alabama, in particular on the offensive side of the football. They lost a ton of talent, high-end talent, and they lost their offensive coordinator in Steve Sarkisian when he went to University of Texas. So I looked at that and said, okay, Bill O'Brien is the play call. He's the one dotting the T's and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And it's going to be interesting. I watched him struggle offensively here in Houston for 3 years, covering him with the Texans. It was going to be very interesting how he fit in at Alabama. And, Max, I know you and I talked about this, and I found it very difficult to believe. And we're going to have two-time SEC Coach of the Year, Houston Nutt, on with us here in a couple of minutes, and maybe he can answer the question. But I still find it very difficult to understand how Bill O'Brien went into Alabama and somehow learned their offense as an offensive play caller, and then went out there and called a game that appeared to be no different than what we've seen from Alabama in the past. So I don't know how that worked out. I've never seen it. I didn't know Saban had an offense, Max. I thought he was a defensive-minded guy. But that was really impressive in Alabama with Bryce Young. The kid's worth the millions of dollars that he's already made as a college quarterback. And then what Georgia did, man, you can't say enough about, the defense in particular in Georgia. But what an old school, just defensive football game that was really fun to watch. It was a nail biter, and Georgia came out on top. So the two powers that be in the SEC, Max, they're the two powers that be in the SEC.
Well, I think when you look at it, you have to say that Bill O'Brien came in and he got Coach Klein's playbook, from the water boy, right?
That's right.
He came in and said, hey, Bill, how you doing? Hey, listen, take this, study it, do it, or else you're gone. I think that's what – so Saban's offense is probably a collection of those things.
Max, I'm literally being told that Bill O'Brien went in there trying to do his thing, and Saban said, whoa, pump your brakes, kiddo. You're going to do things my way. I know you're bringing your buddy in, the offensive line coach that used to be the head coach at Jacksonville. I know it. But what I'm being told is that Nick Saban said, whoa, here's what you're going to do. Here's the offense that you're going to run, and we're not going to change one thing. This is Coach Rehab 101. You fit in, you don't run things. And I don't know about you, Max, but that's the damnedest thing I've ever heard at the college or pro level for a former head coach in the NFL to do that. I mean, but the proof's in the pudding. We watched the game, man. That was Bama's offense with Tua. That was Bama's offense with Mac Jones. That was Bama's offense, not Bill O'Brien's. So for what it's worth, I salute Bill O'Brien for fitting in and calling a good first game.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at this, right, Saban is the home of disavowed coaches. But I think he also, recognizes that, if I have a formula, especially a championship formula, why am I going to bring you in to change said formula, especially when I've seen your formula did not work at your previous stop? You look at that and you say, okay, it's different where Sark was still okay offensively, but it just didn't fit, right? And you bring him in. Lane Kiffin, he couldn't handle managerial duties as a head coach at the time, but he was a gifted offensive mind. You bring him in. But Bill O'Brien, you were the head guy. It didn't work out. You're taking a demotion, and you're coming into a well-oiled machine. I don't need your part to be made out of anything special. I don't need it to have any extra responsibilities. I just need to fit into the cogwheel, right? So everything keeps churning. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing. But I think also it's going to ultimately help Bill O'Brien when he takes his next leap, because you see what NFL talent looks like at this level. And Nick Saban's not trying to mess with that. So I look at that and I say kudos for Shad, because we were being kind by saying they beat up on Miami. They absolutely blew the doors off of them like their mascot, the Hurricane. You know what I'm saying? Like
That's right.
It was from when they said go, that whistle blew and that ball got kicked off. It was like, hey, this is our spring game, except for we brought in a JV squad. That's how they treated Miami down there, and it was crazy to watch. But like you said, let's move on. Let's talk about Georgia Clemson. Now, we had our moments, and we talked about why we think this is going to be a great matchup. It's going to be tight. It proved to be that. But what Georgia's defense was, did we not anticipate enough about the effect of what Georgia's defense could be? Did we downplay it because we were thinking about JT Daniels? We're thinking about this offense being great. And did we kind of downplay what this defense – because this defense made Clemson look pedestrian at best.
Yeah.
DJ Uiagalelei looked confused. He looked like a first-time starting quarterback, not a guy who went to the hilt with Notre Dame and also won a game for them. He looked very pedestrian. I mean, how good is this defense? But also, what about the offense?
Uiagalelei. Okay, I got it now. I got you.
There we go.
That one's beat me up a few times. See how coachable I am, Max? Come on, man. All I need is a good coach.
Good quarterback.
Yeah. Hey, I think we probably undervalued the how good Georgia is defensively. I don't know why the hell we would do that with Kirby Smart. The one thing we know they're going to do is play good defense, but they played really, really great defense and then made the one play that was the difference in the football game. But I'll tell you what else we did. I know I did. I don't want to speak for you, Max. You're bigger than me. I don't want to get slapped around. But I'm going to tell you, man, when we heard the comments from, I think it was Dabo Swinney and maybe the offensive coordinator at Clemson, but it was somebody with the Clemson organization, Clemson program, when they talked about DJ being able to make Trevor Lawrence, look average. I think you hear that and then you look at the build and he can run and he can do all these things and he's surrounded by great talent. And all of a sudden we think this kid's supposed to just step in like Bryce Young did at Alabama and go do major things against Kirby Smart, one of the best defensive minds we've ever seen in college football. And so we probably we didn't give Georgia's defense enough credit, and we probably gave the quarterback for Clemson. See, I can't say his name again. I've already forgot. But we probably gave him too much credit way too soon, because what Bryce Young did, what Mac Jones did, how quickly Tua jumped on the scene, what we saw Deshaun Watson do and Trevor Lawrence do at Clemson, those things don't happen every single day. And so we probably shouldn't have placed those expectations on DJ. But we'll see. Moving forward, Clemson's got to beat everybody by double digits moving forward. They got to beat everybody by 3 touchdowns moving forward, or they're going to have a hard time getting to college football playoffs. So we're going to see what they're about. And with the SEC slate, we're going to see what Georgia's about.
Well, yeah, and most definitely. I mean, you think about this, what helps Clemson out is the fact that they don't have Miami on this, or maybe it could help them out. I mean, if you have Miami after what we saw, but they don't see Miami this season. So if they saw Miami, it would be in a championship setting. North Carolina obviously surprisingly took a step back in their game as well. So it's going to be interesting to see Clemson. But you're right, Georgia, this was the first of about 3 tests for them that they were going to face with their schedule. But I think one of the interesting things, I don't know if you heard Kirby Smart's presser talking about how, obviously Christopher Allen, they're going to probably lose him, the offensive lineman. They're dealing with their highest COVID numbers to deal with attrition-wise. I mean, that's really going to be one of the kind of overarching things for all of college football. But, Kirby came in and kind of hit a doom and gloom in his press conference. I mean, that's something that I know we're going to have to keep an eye on. We're going to have to constantly watch is COVID. It's not just the injury report, right? It's the COVID report that comes after the injury report. It's the new injury report. Just looking at that, I mean, what could derail Georgia worse? Do you think it would be having those COVID diagnoses? Because as I look at their schedule, I mean, it's tough to see their challenges without saying, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be tough." Because they got UAB this week coming up. Then of course you go South Carolina and Vandy, and then they'll see your good old Razorbacks after that. But I mean, this slate is not tough for Georgia. I mean, how do you see that kind of working itself out as we progress? Just a couple of weeks. We're not going to go full crystal ball here.
I mean, Max, let's be honest, man. I mean, for Georgia, it's about prepping for those 3 or 4 games on your schedule, including the SEC championship. I mean, that's where they're at as a program. And I think the one thing that they've really got to hone in on is obviously their firepower on offense. I mean, we talk a lot about JT Daniels and what he's capable of doing because he jumped on the scene last year. Really good player. I'm a big fan. I talked last week about his ceiling being a little bit higher than what's my man's name that graduated from Georgia, Jake Fromm. I think his ceiling's a little bit higher, so I think the offense's ceiling's a little bit higher. But the reality is, man, I don't care if they're playing Clemson. When you're one of the top 10 programs in America and you go out in the first game and you score 3 points in today's game, that ain't it, man. And so I think that they've got to really use the next few games to figure out offensively what they're going to do, what they're going to look like, iron out some of the wrinkles that caused problems last week. Obviously, COVID's going to be an issue. It's going to be a competitive advantage for programs like Nick Saban. He's going to find a way to keep his guys in a bubble and make sure that COVID doesn't become a problem there, kind of like Tom Brady's going to do with the Buccaneers and the championship caliber football teams do. So, he'll get that thing figured out in Georgia as far as the COVID goes. They'll be able to navigate it because, like you said, there's a couple of light weeks here coming up. But I think the biggest ticket is, man, if you're going to beat Alabama, I think Florida down the stretch, I think they got to make a move at quarterback, but Florida down the stretch they're going to be able to put up some points. You're going to beat those caliber teams, man. You're going to have to score more than 3 points, boss.
Well, no doubt about it. And I think we saw how detrimental it could be not having those receivers available to you, right? And really relying on the run game. And of course, this is one of the most stout parts that we saw with Clemson, and they did a great job, right? They answered the bill, and really passing was an issue for both teams in this contest. So you wonder, can that bugaboo kind of get shaded as they get guys healthier? Can it open up this offense for JT Daniels and allow him more latitude? But looking at some of the other games, to jump into this one's going to be getting into the deep end immediately. LSU, man. I mean, yes, you and I talked about it on Twitter, but I mean, God, this LSU squad. I mean, it wasn't so much that they lost to UCLA. It was about how they lost to UCLA. They just look like the least physical team. And when we think of LSU, right, you usually hang your hat on the fact that LSU is a more physical team. They might not be the most talented, but they're going to be the toughest and they're going to be the fastest. They're just going to do things really tough and wrong or really fast and wrong. And we didn't see either one of those things really in this game.
Yeah, look, we talked about it last week. This is an LSU that I don't know. I don't know. I'm used to, from the days when I was playing the SEC, there was one year where I think they won 2 or 3 games, and I think they beat us the last game of the season to win that second or third game. They weren't a very good football team, but I tell you what they were. They showed up, and they would bite your ass, that's for sure. I mean, there is no doubt about it. They had horses inside on the offensive line. They on the defensive line, they were dogs, and they would find a way. I remember one year, Herb Tyler was the quarterback, and he went out. And what's my man's name that played in New England? He won a Super Bowl, the running back, Kevin Falk.
Oh, Kevin Falk, yeah.
Right, Max. Kevin Falk came. LSU came to Little Rock that year, and Kevin Falk played quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. They found a way. Now we ended up beating them, but they found a way to ground and pound and to play to their strengths of being bigger and more physical up front on both sides of the ball. And it was an absolute dogfight with a really one-man show. I don't know this LSU, man. I don't know the LSU that gets outrushed. Check this out. They got outrushed. UCLA rushed for 150 plus. I think it was 159 to be exact, but 150 plus yards more than LSU did. Now, whether we're talking about LSU's offense not producing or we're talking about LSU's defense giving up more than they should, and I don't even care if it's a Chip Kelly team. I don't care who they were playing. That in itself explains exactly my point to you last week is I don't know this LSU team. I don't know how to couch them. I don't know what they're capable of. And look, I'll be honest with you. With that little smart mouth comment that my man Ed Orgeron said, I'm a big Ed Orgeron fan. But that comment that's gone viral, that Sissy Blue comment that UCLA took and made it their banner on Instagram and Twitter, hey, those kind of things happening, coupled with not winning ball games, he's going to be on the hot seat after that Kentucky game. Week 6, hot seat, Eddie O, after the Kentucky game. Mark it, book it, Max.
Yeah. Well, Clint, I think that's a pretty prominent statement. I do want to put a pause here and, of course, get into the next topic. And I think there's nobody better to come in and give us that next topic than, of course, one former coach that you know very well, Mr. Houston Nutt. He's going to be joining the broadcast here. And we're going to hit the old ball coach and pepper him with some questions and see what we can make of this SEC salad. See if we can make it Cobb or maybe those little, the strawberry with the goat cheese, those fancy ones with the spring greens.
That's right. Hey, look, the one thing I love about H, man, is you're gonna be entertained and he's gonna shoot you straight. And we got, look, here's the deal. This early in the season, Max, we got a ton of really coach questions. How do you handle quarterbacks? How do you handle a loss the first week to a non-conference power in the Pac-12? How do you handle certain things as a head coach? There's a lot of that going on right now in the SEC. So I'm anxious to get his take on those particular things. It's going to be fun.
Well, we got a treat for you. We got a conversation coming up with Coach Houston Nutt, obviously a famous Razorback coach, and he is not going to hold back when we talk to him. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know about Field to 12 Media, a brand new podcast and digital media network covering college football by the people that know it best. Brought to you by Shoot Your Shot Productions, the folks behind the Field of 68. The Field of 12 gives you insight into the game we all love by the people who have lived it. Trevor Knight and Bryce Petty covering the Big 12. Joshua Perry and Christian Hackenberg are covering the Big 10. Yogi Roth and Ted Robinson own the Pac-12. We have Harry Douglas and Cody Sensabaugh on the ACC side of things. And, of course, we'll be here every week to be your go-to source for everything SEC. Check the links below to find the rest of our shows, The Field of 12, where college football happens. Well, as promised, we now have a great member of the SEC media, a great former head coach. Clint knows him. I know Coach Nutt as well. So we welcome Coach Houston Nutt in here. Coach Nutt, thank you for joining us here on SEC Primetime. Clinton Max, and we got to hit you with some questions, Coach. We got to hit you with some questions. But first, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on the show with you guys.
All right, Coach. Well, we're going to jump right into the deep end real fast. We're going to go right hot and heavy. Who's the biggest threat to Bama? Just anybody. You don't even have to be SEC. Who is the biggest threat outside of New England or Tampa Bay to the actual present time?
That's about right, man. That's about right. I'm going to probably say Georgia right now. I look at Georgia's front seven. I think they're so athletic. I think they got a great defense. I'm still interested to see how the offense comes along. JT Daniels and the guys, and how many weapons he's going to have to go along with him as a supporting cast. But I tell you, when you look down the list, to me, it's Alabama and everybody else. There's a big time separation right now.
Coach, what about over in the East? You talked about Georgia, obviously, with a big-time performance against Clemson, big-time win out of the gate. I mean, if they wouldn't have won that game, they'd have had to run the table and win the SEC championship to get into college football playoffs, I believe. That was a big-time win by Georgia. But who in that East – and I know it's early, man. I know we've only seen one round of games, but who in that East is a team that you could see pushing Georgia for that particular division title to get to the SEC championship?
You know, Clint, I would probably say Florida right now because they're the only ones to me that have some athletes. I think if you watch that second team quarterback, he came in and did some things. I think there's going to be some moves going to be made right there. Emory Jones, I know everybody has a lot of expectation for him, but I tell you, there's something about that guy that came in and did some things. But I expect Florida to continue to get better. There's athletes on both sides of the ball, but man, there's just such a separation right now.
Coach, you brought up that Anthony Richardson is the backup quarterback, who, by the way, is wearing Tebow's number. He changed to Tebow's number. Pretty gutsy move right there by the big fella. I watched that game again last night, Coach, and I don't think there's any doubt that at Florida, Anthony Richardson, I think his style of play, I think it plays in the SEC versus the big boys better than Emory Jones. You've been a coach. You've had quarterback controversies. They play Alabama in 2 weeks, Coach. They got a cupcake next week, and then they play Alabama. How do you handle that quarterback situation if you're Dan Mullins? Do you wait? Do you keep splitting reps? Or do you go ahead and make the move with the young fella, the young bull that gives you a chance to win games and ultimately could give you a chance to win a game versus Bama down the stretch?
Great question. Clint, I tell you what, I think you got to go. I think you got to make that move. I think you got to make the decision. And Dan Mullen, of course, is kind of known as this quarterback whisperer. And so I just feel like, I don't know, I'm outside looking in. I feel like they'll make that move real quick. And I think you have to move him in there and get reps. Now, again, that's not saying Emory Jones, hey, we're just going to discard him right now. But as you mentioned, the way he does the RPOs, the mixing of run, read zone, pass, I tell you, Anthony, he looked pretty sharp and looks like to me he will have the upper hand, but he'll need those reps because, as you mentioned, there's 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks left. So I look for him to make that move.
Yeah, no doubt. Trust me, as a proud Florida Gator, I'm sitting there and I'm torn in between, right? You know, the efficiency and passing of Emory, but yet at the same time, Anthony Richardson brings some dynamic gameplay. That 73-yard rush, I was like, wowzers. I was
right.
Like,
exactly.
That gave me Kyler Murray feels.
Max, my man put up, I looked at the box score and he said, 160? I had to go back and watch the second half. I said, 160 on the ground?
7 rushes, though.
And I'm going to tell you, there's a difference between 160 and guys nipping at your heels and 160 and you're separating as you cross the goal line. I'm going to tell you, Anthony Richardson, I mean, he's going to be a beast in the SEC moving forward over the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, he gave a lot. He gave a lot of defensive coordinators some headaches and now new game plans to institute against Florida. But, Coach, here's the other thing I want to dive into, because obviously we had a number of other games and surprises. Who is your Cinderella in both of these divisions, in the West and the East? Somebody who surprised you and you think, hey, who's dark horse?
Max, you know who surprised me the most? Last night, I knew Matt Corral, I knew he could ball. There's no question about it. I love the way he throws, got a great release. Man, Lane has him going. But the thing that surprised me the most, they couldn't tackle air last year. Ole Miss's defense, DJ Durkin, what he's done with the defense, that's massive improvement. These guys are hitting. They got some gap integrity. They're chasing the football, and they're arriving in a bad mood. I think Ole Miss, you better keep your eye on those guys. The receivers, I thought they looked good. Drummond, and we knew about Ely. We knew these guys can make plays. Snoop Connor, a running back that's physical. Boy, he's just got just enough. The offense is so quick, so fast. They make things happen. But to me, it was the defense. On the east side, you know, again, when I think about Georgia and Florida at the top, and then after that, I always look at the quarterbacks that are coming back. And I like Missouri's quarterback, Basilak, that's coming back. I just don't know if there's enough supporting cast. I just don't know yet. I got to see a little bit more.
Okay, Coach. What do you know? I tell you, Coach. I like Kentucky out of the East. I'm a big Mark Stoops guy, right? Yeah. I mean, I love Stoops. I think they're always going to be sound on defense. They're always going to be in the hunt and have a shot. It's always relying on that offense. Can he get it off? I mean, he shuffled offensive coordinators in there more than a damn dealer in Vegas now. He's got them rolling, but if he can get the stars to align there, Coach, I think Stoops might be able to sneak up on somebody this year.
I think you're right, and he's been so consistent, Clint. He has done a great job at Kentucky. It's not an easy job, as you know, and he has been consistent. You're exactly right on defense. He's always going to have that on point, but they've got to get some offense, and I just don't know. You know, I want to see some more.
Yeah. Well, what about that West Side? The West Side is always, we know it. We know it's the land of Alabama. We know that it's the land that Saban fertilizes with coaches and everybody else. But you know, looking at Texas A&M, right? That was coming into this season. That was our clear-cut number 2, and we thought LSU would be a dark horse. But what do you make of Texas A&M as that contender to Alabama in the West and kind of their performance? I mean, Haynes King looked good, but are we still feeling warm and fuzzy about Texas A&M?
You know, Max, I'm not right now. Now, I like their defense, that front. They're tough. They're stout. And to me, they're going to have to carry the load for a while. When you lose a Kellen Mond, and Clint is a great example, when you have a guy that has experience that's been there, and he's had over so many thousands of yards passing, total offense, you miss that guy. Now, Haynes King is a guy that's athletic, and he'll get better. But the defense is going to have to buy Texas A&M some time. Remember now, Kent State was in this game now. They were in the game the first half, played them, and stood in there toe-to-toe a little bit with them until at the end. But I just think the Texas A&M going through a little bit of growing pains. And, again, Jimbo Fisher is all proved. We know that he can coach a quarterback and get them going. But they got a little ways to go to me. And it's going to be interesting to see how much improvement they make here in the next 2 weeks. But I really still believe the defense of Texas A&M will have to carry the offense a little bit, get them some turnovers, get the ball back to the offense, get them some short fields because they got a little ways to go. I love Anaya Smith. I love the back, Speller. I love all those guys. But, again, when you look at the quarterback, you can tell hadn't been there. Got a little bit more, little growing pains he's got to go through, speed of the game and all those things. He got better at the end. But the game will get faster now as we go each week now.
A&M having to replace a quarterback and 4 offensive linemen, and folks got them going 12-0. That's a tall task right there with those particular issues. Coach, I mean, we'd be remiss to have you on and not ask you about what's going on up in Fayetteville this weekend, man. It's Arkansas, Texas. You and I got Texas, baby. Come on now. We got them one time on January 1, 2000. Y2K. We woke up, Max. We woke up first game in college football in the Cotton Bowl, and we went to whooping on some Longhorn ass, baby. But Coach, you got him. I think a few times. Once with Matt Jones, you fell short. I think a couple of times as well. Heck of a matchup. You're an Arkansas guy through and through. You're aware of the Southwest Conference days, the rivalry, all of those things, man. How big is this game, really? I mean, for Arkansas. Just traditionally and for the program, as well as the SEC and the future of UT coming in the SEC.
Clint, they only got me once, man. Just once.
Okay, my bad.
Get it right. Okay.
Come on, get it right. Put some respect on his name.
Okay, Clint, I got to take y'all back. To the Southwest Conference days. And y'all know this. Darrell Royal, Frank Broyles, icons, legends. They were the captains of Clint Sterner's gang that week in 2000. They were the captains. And so I go back. I grew up watching Arkansas, Texas, the Earl Campbells. And the tradition of this thing was just awesome. And remember now the record, if you go back, look at history, it's lopsided towards Texas. Texas is the giant. It's David versus Goliath. And that's always the way I looked at it. I love Texas Tech, playing Texas Tech, TCU, SMU, Rice. But I knew as a youngster growing up, I knew when Texas was coming to town. I knew it. The whole world, the whole state of Arkansas knew it. And it was a special time. So this is going to be great. The one thing I miss the most, guys, I miss the noise, the pageantry, the passion, the tailgate. It was so hard for me to watch a game without the noise last year. I got to have the crowd. I got to have that noise. And so this is going to be a big game. And Arkansas, this stadium will be full. I think it'll be wall to wall, first time in a long time, because of the tradition of Arkansas versus Texas. Texas, looking at Texas, I tell you what, they surprised me a little bit. They're better than I thought, especially starting at quarterback. I thought they'd be a little bit further behind. Steve Sarkisian has kind of put his magic in there, and they look pretty good, especially with Robinson at tailback. That's the quarterback's best friend. Ooh. And so I'm just looking for Arkansas that they've got to get some things cleaned up this week, starting with you got to protect the punt. You can't give up anything like that. You can't give up a short field, give the ball away. You got to take care of the most precious thing you have, especially a game like this. So I'm looking forward to it, Clint. I think this will be a rock'em sock'em. I think the fans are going to play every play. But it's so important that KJ Jefferson get off to a great start. Just take what they give you. You don't have to be Superman now, and don't try to force things against this Texas defense and get this thing to the fourth quarter. But I'm looking forward to it because of the tradition. And going back to your game, Clint, the one thing that I love so much about your group is this was such a unbelievable week because, again, going back to the Arkansas, Texas, and the history of it, it was just the passion that y'all played with. And so I love it. I just think you got to be physical, and you got to bring this wood every single play, my man. A game like this, you can't take any plays off. So let's go. Let's go.
Oh man! Hey, listen, Coach, I'm about to pull this helmet from behind me and put it on right now. I'm ready to go play Texas Arkansas right now, and I'm a Gator. We got USF. We got the Bulls.
Hey, it looks like you still got 2 or 3 series left in you.
Yeah, 2.2 minute only, Coach. That's all I got for you. I got quick pass. I got a couple of short yardages. That's about it. well, Coach, I mean, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for joining Clint and I on SEC Primetime. We appreciate the time. We know that you're a busy man, but thank you for stopping by. Hopefully we can talk to you down the line one of these days.
Anytime, my guys. Hey, best of luck.
Coach, appreciate it, man. Love you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Clint.
Yeah, that was Coach Houston Nutt. We'll be back in a moment. Before we move on to giving you our lines and talking about the picks of this week for the big games in the SEC, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with BetRivers yet, now's the time because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play through the turn for your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Play Instant Approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With football season kicking off, get in on the action by going to betrivers.com today or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, as promised, it's that time. We're going to give you our lines and thoughts about 2 of the biggest games in the SEC, of course, presented by our partners at BetRivers Sportsbook. Clint, we got 2 dandies. And Coach Houston Nutt kind of teed us up for this one. But Texas, Arkansas. Texas, of course, has given up 6. The total on that is 57 points. I think a high number, but you know, when we break this down and we look at what to expect in this game, it's going to be ruckus. It's going to be crazy. How do you see this game shaking out in your mind? What has to go right for Arkansas and what has to go right for Texas?
Well, look, I think for Arkansas, the first and foremost, I think the quarterback has to play better. KJ Jefferson has to play better for 4 quarters, not just the second half, and within the scheme, not off platform, out of the pocket. Making plays, outside of scheme with his feet. He did that well last week, but he's got to play from within the system better and couple that with all the runs and things of that nature. But I think the biggest part of Arkansas doing that is Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator. We all know who Kendall Briles is. He's one of the better offensive minds in the game. Look, he's got to play to the strengths of the quarterback, KJ Jefferson. He's not a guy that's going to dissect defenses consistently from the pocket for 4 quarters. He may one day. He's not ready for that right now. He's not a guy that's going to attack down the field consistently for 4 quarters from the pocket. Again, maybe one day, not right now. His strength is basically the dual threat, power quarterback plus one type of run game inside. They've got to get that corrected. And Max, if they do, I love Arkansas catching 6 points at home versus Texas, right? I think Texas is much improved. I like Steve Sarkisian. I love the Sarkisian battle versus Briles battle and from a sense of offensive mind and coaches. I love the Arkansas-Texas tradition, but a 6-point dog at the house, I got to go with Arkansas. I think they right the ship, and I think they cover 6 points. And I like the over in that ball game right there, Max. I really do. I like the over. Did you say 57?
57, yep. 57
I like the over in that ball game right now because I do think they can both score points. I do think it's a tight ball game. I like Arkansas at home catching 6 and over 57.
All right. Okay, there we go. Spoken by a true Razorback. We're not going to let the alumni down on that one. I just look at this and I say this is going to be a slobber knocker. I think Coach Nutt kind of hit it on the head when he said, you got to bring that wood. And it's going to be a packed house, in Arkansas. And they have been waiting for this. It's almost like when you're sitting in the backyard and there's those brothers across the street that kind of piss you off all the time. They'll knock your bike off, kick your trash cans over, and you're sitting in your yard like, come on, please, step across the line. We've drawn the line. Just step in the yard. Please, I pray that you step across the line. And they finally are. And now we're going to see it, just a good old front yard brawl amongst the neighbors, right? And so I like your Razorbacks. I like them in this game. I think what Sam Pittman is accomplishing there, I think is going to fit well. And I think, like you said, Kendall Briles, we all know it's hot and cold, right? We know Kendall, he does not keep a notebook. It is strictly off the dome in a lot of senses when he's running his offense. But I think you kind of tailor it back. You have tape to give KJ Jefferson to kind of hone himself. I'm not really sold on Hudson Card just yet, but I do like Sarkisian's offense. So I agree. It's going to be a tough one.
Max, real quick,
go ahead.
Not that it's anything even remotely close to Florida State and Bobby Bowden. I get it. That's a whole different emotion that program felt. But it is something different emotionally for Arkansas right now. The Texas matchup just means more for us, man. I don't care what Texas thinks. It just means more. And so as we watch the Florida State Bobby Bowden, they almost knocked off number 9 at home. You can't tell me that some of that that team wasn't drawing energy from the crowd and drawing energy from the moment with Bobby Bowden's hat and his signature and his wife and all those stories. You can't tell me they weren't drawing energy from that. And so I'm not comparing Texas, Arkansas to that by any means, but there is an emotional tie to this ball game that these players will, no doubt about it, pull energy from Razorback Nation on game day. It's a sellout already. They got some standing room only tickets. It is going to be absolutely off the charts in Fayetteville. This team is going to feel that energy and that passion, and they'll play a little bit better, no doubt, brother.
Well, yeah, most definitely. And like you said, Texas is going to get their first taste of what the SEC life is all about. Hey, they've already been accepted. They got to walk through that door, and this is the first chance to see an old face to welcome them in properly, hopefully with the beat down, and let them know that you might be walking into the SEC, but you're going to limp back out very soon. So
that's right.
The next game we're jumping to, we're not going to go too far from the great state of Texas. We got Texas A&M versus Colorado. This one, Texas A&M has given up 16.5 points. The total line on this, point-wise, is 52. Haynes King, round 2. Defense for Texas A&M, round 2. What do we see about them going against the Buffaloes?
Well, I think you're looking at two teams that really haven't been challenged from a standpoint of their opponent week one. I mean, they physically were more gifted. They physically were just flat out better across the board than their opponent, right? I don't know if the coaches were or were not happy with their film across the board. I would imagine that there was some strong, tough conversations that were had. Particularly with A&M on the defensive side of the football, giving up over 200 yards on the ground to an inferior opponent, quite frankly. So I think that both of these teams haven't been challenged yet. But when I look at both programs. I don't know a whole hell of a lot about Colorado. I know my boy Darren Severini is up there doing his thing, and I love him. I wish him well, but I think this week, A&M has got a lot to prove, and I think they're going to slowly trend in the right direction with this young quarterback. I think he's unbelievably gifted, more than I thought. And so I like A&M. What'd you say the lines and the spread was right there, or the total and the spread was right there, Bo?
So right now on Bet River Sportsbook, they got the line Texas A&M 16.5 points. They're giving to Colorado, and then 52 total points scored in the game.
Ooh-wee. Boy, I got to go with Colorado catching them kind of points. And again, I'm gonna go with the over. I think both of these teams have the ability to strike fast. I think both of these teams have the ability to score some points, and I'll go with the over. I'm gonna take both games. Imagine that. I'm taking the dog in both games, and I'm taking the over in both games. Right, so you can't call me a rookie.
Well, and you're a quarterback, so of course you're gonna go with points scored, right? I mean, and then when I look at this, I'm like, I do give 16.5 to Colorado, but I don't know if they hit that 52-point threshold. I'm taking the under on that one. I'm being a little bullish because I think the defense for Texas A&M is going to work with, what Colorado has shown us against, of course, one of those things we always talk about, directional schools, right? You have to worry about a school that's booking directional schools. And they played Northern Colorado, and they beat them by, 28 points. They beat them by 4 tutties. But that's playing little brother in the state, right? That's like calling your homeboy over like, hey, listen, I need to get ready for this Madden game. Can you just go give me a warm-up before I jump in this tournament? That's kind of what it did. We'll pay you some money. I'm going to give you some money. You make it worth it. Give you some Mountain Dews and some Doritos. But this is all I got right now. I think it will be a lower scoring affair. Haynes King, hopefully he feels more comfortable, like you said, getting into the rhythm of what Jimbo wants him to do, because he looked like a young player last week. And he's going to face a little bit better competition, a step up. But I think it's the right progression for him before he gets into SEC play. So there it was. You heard it from the quarterback and the lineman in the SEC. Whoa, hold on. Yeah, what we got?
I got one more. Hey, Max, check it out, man. I married a Longhorn. I'm a hog through and through, and I married a Longhorn. So on betrivers.com, I don't know if this line is up yet, but there's an over-under on how many days this week my marriage is going to survive before I have to go stay with my mom and dad, or find me somewhere else to sleep. All right. I mean, the line right now, it's not a number. It's been set at Thursday, right? If I make it to Thursday in my own bed, then I'm gonna be all right, man. But I got me a Longhorn in the house, and I tell you what, it's a tough ass week on my marriage, brother.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Nothing worse than a house divided, especially when you come to that. But we all know at the end of the day, as long as you say, yes, dear, I'll get to that, dear, you should make it to Thursday. I'm taking the over on that one. Now I'm gonna check with you on Twitter on Friday and make sure you're not at a Holiday Inn or something. But I'm gonna take the over on that one. And so with that, those were our lines for this week. This has been SEC Prime Time. He's Clint Sterner. I'm Max Starks. Thank you for joining us. And, of course, thank our sponsors at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. We'll talk to you guys next week.